embarrassing. Apollo was a kitten that didn't really like being picked up, and he still doesn't really like being picked up, so... I'd say most of their temperaments are the same. So we are in a semifinal, which means I gotta slap on that best of 5 with the recent change to the prize pool amount and distribution. 3rd and 4th place now get money, and they deemed it necessary to make it a best of 5 semis, which is fine enough if the cups aren't going to be that long, or if they're going to play out both semis at the same time, which is currently what's happening. But a little awkward otherwise. You can catch the other semifinals here, Marine vs. Soul, I believe, on Wardy's channel, amongst others. But here, we're catching the start of a fresh TvP series. In the bottom right, as the blue Protoss, he is ShowTime. In the top left is the red Terran, he is uThermal. Not entirely all in the top left, as he is 2-raxing down here. ShowTime is already scouting for such things, and oh my god, are you real? Look at that! Look at it! Ay, ay, ay! Ay, ay, ay! That sucks. That sucks for ShowTime, who was probably going to go for a Gateway expand now and might have actually held off on the whole expansion thing if he knew about it. This is very, very awkward. He will eventually scout the main base, but that's what makes this so extra special duper awkward, is that he doesn't scout the main base's lack of barracks as fast as he would have had he not even tried scouting the 2 racks in the first place. Now, ShowTime actually does not go for a Nexus after Gateway, which is already really nice, much nicer for him. He might just be comfortable not going for that because it does help you against like the initial Reaper, which can be a real pain. Or he might just say, you know what, I didn't scout anything, but uThermal is the type of guy who would do this. So it's a good thing he did that, but he really would have liked the Zealot already out and ready to deal with this bunker. uThermal finds the second pylon as well, and that pylon could have been really useful for building a shield battery in the future, but right now it's useful for not being supply blocked. The probes have been pulled, and that's going to help supply block, I suppose. But a Zealot needs to be here as well. Stalker also going to have to be chronoed out. 3 probes have gone down so far, 4, probably 5 before they get this around. A 6th one goes down, and they didn't even kill both of the Marines. The bunker does stop from being built, however, and that is a really crucial detail right there. uThermal's going to follow up with Marauder slow, which, you know, TOI was doing this quite a bit, and while that was actually more so off of, you know, 2 racks at home with an expansion, I am interested to see how the Marauder slow follow-up will work out in the very, very, very aggressive form of the build. The probe is still scouting around for a factory. It sees a single gas and no factory. It kind of figures out, like, oh, okay, you're going to follow this up. He also just saw the Marauder. Now he sees the factory and knows that there's some dedication outside of just pure double Marauder. So you can't really afford that plus the factory. So that's the good news. With the pylon living, that's also another piece of good news for ShowTime. He was able to build that shield battery that I was talking about and wasn't supply blocked. Now that his Nexus is down, that's no longer a worry at all. And he's seriously, very seriously tackling this opening by building a second shield battery, which I think is very fair. You know they don't have a command center. You know their additional technology is very late. Over-defending is better than under-defending. Pylon can be recharged by a shield battery, but ShowTime's going to have to micro that. As currently the scariest thing about his defense right now is losing that pylon. He's continuing to build probes as the simple 1 gateway production seems to be good enough. Good target fire as well. Not up to the 4 count of Stalkers yet to one-shot Marines. They're now working on the Marauders. Needs to be careful though. Marauder slow is a hell of a thing. Needs to be very close to the shield batteries at all times. And there is the backup pylon to help out, just in case uThermal thought about sniping it. Good snipe on the Marauder, but it does cost one of his own Stalkers, so a fair trade. That second Marauder going down, though, is not much nicer. Blah, blah, blah. Probe has still been scouting, by the way, so it saw how late the starport was. I'm not sure he actually was paying attention, though, funnily enough. Like, he might be able to figure out that it's a command center because of the building timing of the starport, but he didn't actually see the command center on the low ground. uThermal does give up on the attack because it simply wasn't working. And yeah, ShowTime figures that out, cancels the 3rd shield battery. I've ever wanted to dye my cat's hair fur rainbow colors. I've never wanted to dye my cat's fur anything because I think it's kind of weird. A Hellion drop as a follow-up? That makes sense, I guess. Gonna keep the pressure going, even as he expands and get his extra 2 barracks. The Marauder proxy really did not end up working out, though. I mean, ShowTime was comfortably building probes during the harassment. He didn't panically get a, panically, is that a word? In a panic state, he did not go for a robo quicker than he should have. He didn't go for a Twilight Council, which, admittedly, technology also would have been a fair call. But anyways, the point is, he responded to that very appropriately. And now has this very superior economy, with the second orbital only just finishing recently for uThermal. 13 worker difference is nice, but that might change. Shield battery in the main base is going to help out against the Hellions and not so much the Widow Mine, which is microed away. Lots of lost mining time, and that is actually 2 Hellions. You might have thought that was going to be a second Widow Mine. Shield batteries are available in the natural, though, and not too many probes should be going down. More importantly, perhaps the medevac wants to leave this base. He wants to be able to leave. 6 probes go down. Medevac does manage to skirt on by. ShowTime wanted to take out the Hellions more than he wanted to take out the medevac, so he didn't lose any more probes. Probably the fair call, but a little sucky for ShowTime. He wanted to grab everything. He needs to also replant his gases. Robotics Bay is on the way alongside the +1. He has taken all of the gases here. He has that robo at the front. He is going to be going into Colossus. And perhaps Disruptors later on. Scouting Pylon plus the 3rd Nexus. We have a Scouting Hallucination getting in here and seeing if there's anything trickier going on. There's actually not. No mech follow-up or something silly like that, but more importantly, seeing the timing of the starport, which is going to tell you the timing of the push. That medevac being really important. ShowTime still has a comfortable worker lead. Will be capped out for a little bit as he waits for his 3rd Nexus to finish. uThermal is actually getting more Hellions. That's a bit weird to see. I mean, it's already weird enough in TvZ where you kind of understand Hellions as a part of the army a bit more, but Hellions a part of the army in TvP? Not as harassment, not as a drop, but actually building them instead of Widow Mines? I would say it's not that great. Is what I would say about that, but it looks like it will be for harassment. It's just going to be very weird to see, which might just help it, actually. Like, 4 Hellions at 8 minutes alongside the triple drop, like, who would expect that? That is at the cost of 4 Widow Mines, though. Do keep that in mind. But it might be worth it. ShowTime knows an attack is on the way. So he's got another shield battery. An observer scouts the medevac drops to the main base, but he's actually pulling most of his army. But he still needs some army protecting his probes against the Hellions, which are going to dart into the natural base. But that's where the army actually is. And that is not going to work out very well at all. uThermal still trying to make the drop work. 1 medevac gets targeted down, but he does unload most of the rest of the units. And the Stalkers now are getting chewed to bits by the bio. The Colossus awkwardly coming in from an angle to the left side means that uThermal, well, can't really jump on top of it. Maybe he can actually take out the sentries to the right. The Colossus needs to actually get up here and help. There he goes. That's got awkwardly go up the Reaper ledge. The Hellions do go down, but so many Stalkers lost their lives. And oh, not the Colossus. He tries to save it with the force fields, but that's not going to happen. 3 Marauders barely live alongside a single medevac, but how was that trade at the end of the day? Fairly even trade, actually. But with all the army trades being even, do keep in mind ShowTime has had the superior economy. The Hellions did not end up doing anything, so while his army supply is a little torn, a little less than you would like, he does still have 65 workers over his opponent's 46. His opponent only just slapping down the command center on location, not even as an orbital. So that is a considerable economic lead. If uThermal cannot use his army lead in the next 60 to 90 seconds, then ShowTime will come out ahead here. Ghost Academy and Vikings are on the way. ShowTime has actually been... I mean, a lot of his PVTs have actually not been dependent on High Templars or Archons, but Ghosts are very crucial to the mid to late game Terran army, so if you can afford it, definitely get them, but we also need to see more Vikings. Potentially, I should say. There are 2 Colossus, the 3rd one had died, but we're also moving into Disruptors, potentially. That Colossus is damn bold, brother. Don't do that. I don't know about that. That was scary. There's a shield battery, but with that many Marauders and the rocks about to be torn down, that Colossus was playing with its life. Literally. Oh, awkward is as awkward does. Oh, okay, we're good. 2-1 upgrades are now on the way. It looks like they'll be on even upgrades. I think almost perfectly even until the 2nd Forge really kicks in. 3rd Colossus is being built, but after that there should be just Disruptors. Blink's finally on the way as well as a 4th Nexus. uThermal has not used his army advantage yet. We'll start falling behind in the upgrades and should not be able to max out as fast as he would like compared to ShowTime. Probably around the same time, actually. But he's getting a 4th, and, you know, considering how this game opened up, this really has been a roller coaster that has ended with a typical-looking PvT. Looks like it was Chicken Man lagging, so he's doing the honorable thing and just leaving. Honor! I watched a lot of Avatar recently. EMP's looking for the sentries. I actually thought uThermal was going to be able to get it, but ShowTime saw the ghosts and split his sentries. Nicely done. Of course, the big EMPs are usually on Archons or Storms, right? But really shouldn't underestimate taking out the Force Fields or Guardian Shield. Yeah, even without the sentries, ShowTime probably holds, but it's a bit scarier. 2-2 is now on the way. Given 30 more seconds, ShowTime will have that upgrade lead. He's also finally got all the technology rounding out here with Blink done and Charge about 80% done as well, but this is actually getting a little awkward. That 4th Nexus not too well protected with having to go down that choke. EMP is kind of pushing away the army, and it looks like ShowTime might just go ahead and give this up. The Vikings also would have gotten some really nasty shots with the positioning. Colossus goes down this ramp. Stalkers can't blink into the army, so he just goes ahead and gives up the 4th base, and that's a really nice little grab there. Not the end of the world, though, because ShowTime didn't sacrifice any army in an attempt to defend it. So he still has the better upgrades, and he still is working on his Disruptor counts. And we might eventually see some Storms, as I was saying before all this. ShowTime just really has not been using them that often. 4th Nexus instead taken down here. Not a whole lot of coverage of the minimap for either player right now. ShowTime's pylons, I think he had one over here, was taken out, but now he's replacing them. Also get on the map with the Stalkers is always a good thing to do. So far hasn't been the case since the opening was so odd. Oh, it's not just the Stalker, it's actually the entire army. It's a little bit awkward because there's no Warp Prism, so I'm not sure how much he's committing to this. Ah, there's the Warp Prism to the north. So he was looking to distract. Distract, say, oh, I'm totally pushing into you, and then either actually push into him or just get a really stellar Warp Prism into the main base. uThermal has no defenses and no scouting to the top right, so a lot of units could be warped in. He scans the army, and that is an intimidating one, so all focus is on the fronts, not in the back lines, not where his production is. Funnily enough, runs into a missile turret and a Viking, so this Warp Prism actually is not going to do as much damage as they thought it was. This had all this space over here to get a warp in, but oh well. That is a very clumped up army. Disruptors would love to get in on this action. He's actually going to go ahead and try and drag the Terran army after him and then shoot out the Disruptors. EMPs did blanket the army as he was also going down a choke, but the Zealots on the main base ended up getting 10 SCVs and a missile turret. A bit more than I thought, considering the Warp Prism was pretty quickly taken out, but perhaps an even trade, all things considered. More importantly, uThermal is still paying attention to his army and not making any mistakes. Same for ShowTime, who's also grabbing a 5th base and continuing to upgrade, as uThermal actually managed to finish his 2-2. So the upgrades are currently even, and there's no +3 armor on the way. uThermal could maybe get an upgrade lead if he started it, but so much more focusing on this attack. He's got the huge concave. The Disruptors do get one good shot. Another one's going to get a decent one too, but the Colossus, well, they actually may be the MVPs here. They have not gone down very quickly at all. They've significantly helped this army actually survive as long as it did, but it is going down, and when everything is said and done, uThermal dragging the rest of his reinforcements forward, looking like it's about to double or triple the army supply. Well, that's just because ShowTime was reinforcing back at home. That was still very, very scary. If the Colossus had gone down faster, if there was actually 6 Vikings tearing them down, there's no way ShowTime takes an even decent trade. Those Colossus were able to do so much splash damage, even in an unideal situation, that we still see a relatively even supply. uThermal is down 20, 30 workers, actually, so that's the army supply. That's why his army looks like it was doubling supply, because, I mean, it's getting close to it, right? But ShowTime has disruptors. They were back at home, not reinforcing. Now he's up to 4, about to be up to 6. He also has that +3 upgrade advantage, and he has a couple of storms. He did finally manage to add a few in. He's also very good at ferrying the storms, given the opportunity. But right now, just focusing on the defense. Army is a little stimmed. Hasn't given the medevac's time to heal him up. And he's not going to try and force the issue here. Just grabbing more gases as we head into the late game TvP. Another command center on the way as well. ShowTime, with all of that aggression, was actually kind of, in a way, defending his 5th Nexus. And in this case, he also kind of defended it from being scouted. I don't think uThermal realized that was put down. And while certainly at this point, as things settle down, you expect it to be building or maybe finishing. It's actually been finished for a while. ShowTime has been reaping the rewards of 80 workers longer than uThermal might expect. Quick check on the army income graph, rather. Oh, Jesus. Oh god, yeah. We'll check the army graph after, though, and I'm sure that'll be just as fun of a graph to look at. But ShowTime is moving in a very aggressive blink forward to take out some of those air units. A bit too aggressive, I think. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter. It was a trade. There's the army graph. Army size. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Army's always been better for uThermal, and then hooja-boo-boo. But not enough to really create a game-ending scenario. Top right, it was canceled, I believe. Disruptors are pounced on by a couple units on the backside, but it doesn't look like any of them died. High Templar was looking for a juicy storm. Either storms on the left or disruptors on the right. That didn't really work out. Storm was taken out. Disruptors still being tagged by uThermal. He knows exactly where they are. Good little reinforcements, defensive setup here against bigger run-bys, drop-bys, whatever you want to call them. We have DT Blink on the way alongside +1 shield. uThermal finally finishing up his 3-3. We still have relatively even upgrades since +3 armor had never started for ShowTime. But it's so much more what disruptors anyway, isn't it? I thought with all the gases being taken, I actually thought uThermal was going to add on at least one more starport and start adding in some liberators, at least for harassment. But no, not the case. He's also still on a pretty low number of ghosts, isn't he? Yeah, literally just one. Getting a little worried for the composition of uThermal, but ooh, he jumps on top of the disruptors. There's a decent number of them, but coming from 2 different angles, he just throws out all of the disruptor balls in an attempt to hit something good, and gets one good shot. It ultimately was not worth all of the disruptors' deaths. Every last disruptor died right there. Now he's actually depending entirely on Storm, so it's a good thing for ShowTime. uThermal only has 1 EMP available. If that's the EMP's not going down, but High Templar is also not paying attention. They do go for the Storm. Then there's the feedback. I was waiting for that one. High Templars were a little aggressively placed, however. He once again was hoping to have them kind of more hidden so that, you know, the army's all down here trying to tackle each other. Suddenly the High Templars on the high ground come in. It worked a lot more awkwardly than that. The EMPs didn't come in either, though, to, I mean, both they're the opposite of their credit. They both made mistakes. There you go. But ShowTime now just has a gigantic army. It doesn't have much splash left over, but it is a gigantic army. He is still up in workers, but he's overall up in supplies, so the armor supply is not as bad as it was just a minute ago. And we have a bit of a base rate here, probably just a base for a base. I gotta expect ShowTime's not willing to play out a real base race. uThermal might be a little more so. He's also on the top right side taking out Nat Nexus. The DT won't be able to stop it from dying, but it will grab every unit, so that's still a fair trade to the top right. It is actually full-on base race territory. uThermal not packing up anything to go home. He's actually not even building liberators here to try and hold that ramp. ShowTime not going for any recalls right now either. Does manage to pump out a couple of DTs and a Colossus, but how is this really going to go? Supplies are so damn even. uThermal has more supply, but he has less splash units. He has less siege units that actually can hold positions, and he's also on a bit of a timer in terms of the medevac energy. Not yet, mind you. That is a ton of medevacs. That is something you have to keep in mind if you're going for the real base race, is that every stim is going to hurt your chances. If we're talking about 2 minutes later, command centers flying all over the place, that is actually a resource. For ShowTime, He loses the Colossus. He is going to get scanned maybe for the DT. The Dark Shrine should absolutely be a target. You do not want that available. There we go, exactly. Then the Forge is upgrading, I would say. It's actually not depowered and he doesn't focus fire it. ShowTime should never get +2 shields. There's no reason for that to happen, but I guess he doesn't have any more scans left over, so he's trying to run away from the DT. The +2 shields will actually be happening in this game. A planetary is left over and 2 orbitals did actually lift off, so we could have the actual last building scenario. That's what uThermal would want, but these DTs are still a big problem. We still have 5 DTs on the map. ShowTime could send 1 in at a time and eventually win this game. Not to mention, he's also taken the army supply lead. And oh my god, the storms coming in from the High Templars in the Warp Prism are amazing, coupled with the DTs getting the last few swipes. It's true that uThermal has managed to hold this planetary longer than anticipated with the mass repair, but it is down and out now, and uThermal is at half the supply. He cannot dodge the storms well enough, as the army of his has been depleted. GG. What a fireworks. The last 2 minutes of this game. Wow. That was fun. Didn't think it was going to go into a base race. For uThermal, as I was saying, it was probably more of an idea he had. I mean, first of all, uThermal's typically a lot more the scrappy player. Terrans are more the scrappy player. And then also his style was kind of like, okay, well, if you can't advance your tech, then I guess maybe base race is the only option you have. But just because I didn't think that would be the forced issue. You know, he still had an economy. He still had a chance to advance his technology. He just didn't. Instead, the base race happened. But maybe he thought that was his only chance. I would say no.
Credits received.
But
thank you for your monetary support.
It's possible he intentionally started that base race. It's possible. I'm thinking not. I think that was just a coinkydink. A very explosive, fun coinkydink. Thank you very much, Hard Revenge, for the 15 bucks. I hope that's because the game was amazing. And my casting was amazing. Gamer 2-1 Zen. I'll have to say one of our shorter maps. Don't forget that last game started off with a Tyrax that I really considered to have failed. Maybe not an F, I guess. Maybe like a D+, but still like not good. You don't go back home and show that to your parents if you can help it. But it didn't seem like it was a great start for uThermal. He's relentless aggression and ability to macro behind that aggression. I mean, makes him, you know, Europe's Maru in a lot of ways. He is aggressive, he is willing to take chances, and he also has that macro to back it up so that in cases where you're like, oh, you're totally behind, right? He's like, well, no, I still got a few things up my sleeve, and I still got a decent SCV count and all that good stuff. And in the end, ShowTime takes game number 1. It is a best of 5 as we are in the semifinals. The bottom left is the blue Protoss. We have ShowTime. And in the top right, we have the red Terran. uThermal not going to go for any proxies this time. Oy, oy, oy. Gonna kind of calm down after that one, man. These two players apparently don't have to. They went lickety-split into the next map. Zen's that shorter map, condensed, even side to side. You know, it just feels a little more claustrophobic. There's a lot more opportunity to kind of instantly snap back when things aren't going so hot. Unlike our last map, as I guess an important note, not as defendable on those 3 bases. Once or twice, ShowTime was down in the army supply, and just really with the superior economy, the defender's advantage really kicked in on that last map. having the ramp to use like he did. So that doesn't exist as much here on Zen. Well, obviously a lot of space around the third to actually jump up, get on top of the ramps, not just be choked out from them. And the fourth and fifth are pretty difficult to hold as well. Last map was Simulacrum, right? Yes, it was. Sometimes because the palettes are so similar, I get confused from Nightshade to Simulacrum. But the actual way they play out is pretty different. Thanks, Head Revenge. Bunker for safety. Stalker's going to maybe? No, there's the exit to the right, that's right. Duh. Exit to the right. In the calm and efficient manner. Reaper, did you put? Scout, did you get? Not enough of one, tell you what. Twilight Council, unscouted in the very, very back right there. Will Showtime go for a second gateway and a third and a fourth, or just the second? Kind of seems like just the second. We do often see the gateways blocking out the front. Just, you know, Helene opener, still pretty popular. In general, harassment, pretty popular, and especially from uThermal. But Showtime actually doesn't bother putting any down here. Can kind of backfire against some tank pushes, I suppose. But anyways, it is just the one gateway. Reaper gets a full scout into the main base. He's a chrono on the Twilight Council. That's pretty, like, you'd have to really be convincing. It'd be a big cost to convince someone that you're doing Blink by chronoing a Blink and then canceling that. And actually having, like, a Dark Shrine somewhere else. So that pretty much confirms that it's actually Blink. And the two gateways in the main base is actually not enough information to tell him if it's aggressive or not. He hasn't gotten back into the natural since the Reaper first did, 2 minutes ago. So that's still not full information here for our Terran. We can see third Nexus, even pushing off his third gas, even more here. In fact, we might have him not go for a Forge. Either he doesn't go for a Forge, or, okay, or he just makes more Zealots than he ever means to make Blink Stalkers, right? If there is a third gas, just really expediting that third Nexus. And 2 gateways is enough to support enough Blink Stalkers. We saw this as the developments, as the build got more and more developed. We went from, 3 gases, Blink, 3 gateways, double Forge, to 3 gases, Blink, 3 gateways, single Forge, and now we're kind of down to 3 gases, 2 gateways, single Forge. Or alternatively, the 4 gate, but now that uThermal's seen the Nexus, he absolutely knows that's not the case. Hallucination sees exactly what uThermal's up to. We haven't talked about him for a hot second.
Monetary support.
Oh, wow, thank you. The Monk for the 25 bucks. Whiskey fund? I drink to that. I knew someone would appreciate that. Yeah, I ran out of my Japanese whiskey. So it's kind of like one of those, like, why lie? I'm spending it on whiskey. And that homeless guy that's on the side of the street, it's like, why lie? I want beer. No. It's only part of it. Anyways, the Widowmine drop has been denied, so let's talk about uThermal's build for a second. It is actually a very typical build. This is the build that you should learn if you want to learn TvP. You have a couple of builds that are slightly different, like, you get a Raven with this, or you get stim much faster than combat shields type thing, but this is the bread and butter TvP. And Showtime knows exactly then the timing for this. He has started his +1 armor in charge, and if chrono boosted consistently, he might have the +1 ready for the engagement, but that is often difficult to have perfectly. If nothing else happens in this game, I think that it does work out well for the Protoss, but usually something else happens. Usually a Stalker dies, aggressive Blink forward, these Stalkers don't track the army is another problem that can happen. The Widowmine drops do any damage whatsoever. But in this case, Showtime got that faster third Nexus. He's getting shield batteries and a cannon. He is taking this first push very, very seriously. More seriously than I thought he would. I actually think he's pretty well suited to deal with this, but he would know better than me, so he will absolutely not be taking damage from this. uThermal's macro has also been uninterrupted. Keep that in mind. So he's doing his build about as perfectly as you possibly can. Probably comparable to Innovation. And looks like the medevac drop, which can be really nice. What the heck? Really nice when doing the push. Okay, it's actually taken out. It died. It lost too many hit points. That is a lot of army Need another warp in of units, and looks like that the +1 armor is actually not quite done. So good on ShowTime, recognize that wouldn't be prepared. Now it's going to be in just a couple of seconds here. The crucial seconds that the shield batteries have helped out with. He also needs more zealots. There they come now from the natural. Now it looks like a more even fight. There we go. Crazy how 10 seconds can be so crucial in so many ways. Congusta Show is also about to finish. Good attempt to kill some of these Widow Mines. There is an observer back here. Not in surveillance mode, though, so it's actually missing a couple of the Widow Mines. And that is a scary number of Widow Mines, too, but really nice play from both players. I mean, ShowTime, I think, better off here, as he is held with only a minor loss of Zealots, and I think a cannon went down. uThermal didn't commit too much either, though, right? It's just one of those questions of, like, well, the super fast saturated third base of the Protoss versus the still very hefty army of the Terran. Actually kind of similar to last game, right? Economies versus army. Oh, uThermal. I believe this is very intentional. So usually you would see +1 armor start almost immediately after +1 weapons, but I think this was intentional. I think he wanted to get those Liberators out. I'm guessing here. But he is going to fall behind on the upgrade, where ShowTime was pretty much right into the +1 weapons. Storm also being chrono boosted, so changing up from what he has been showing us a lot in his PvTs, which is a lot of Disruptor play, a lot of Colossus play. In fact, on this map, I would say Colossus play very, very popular. Really changing things up and perhaps hoping to get a bit of a surprise. Those are Zealots that were picked up, so the scan is what now reveals that it is High Templars. This was actually not something he knew about, but it was so awkward. Liberator range. Liberator zones, zoning out much of the army. Wouldn't mind zoning out the Stalkers from the Liberators. It's a perfect balance of units right now for uThermal, who might be down in upgrades in just a second and might not be capable of taking out the Storms with no EMPs, but my god, the Widow minefield, the Liberators. The Stalkers are trying their best with the positioning that they have, which is probably better than being on this side of things, but they can't really get past this. But the Storms coming on top of the army. The first two are pretty good, the last two a little less so, but the army is very, very weak. It's going to move in now. Two Liberators almost dead there. They finally go down. One more left over. Might actually be able to hold a little bit heller, but nope. Just kidding. No hold from that Liberator. The army was far too weak, and that is a tap out. ShowTime takes the 2-0. As uThermal was committing heavily on that push. He hadn't really saturated his third base. He did get that +1 armor, but it wasn't even done. And he was really hoping that push was going to be able to win him the game. It was so scary, too. Like, I'm actually surprised that ShowTime did that as well as he did. But at the end of that fight, he looked even convincing. I think the Storms were a big surprise. Imagine if those are Disruptors or Colossus trying to help against the Liberators. They're going to have a much tougher time. Easy dodge away from a single Disruptor or two, and then Colossus take a while to actually burn through the army on the ground.
Resubscription received.
So he was
Apparently you
probably...
are doing something right, Captain.
Well, that push can probably work against anything. Maybe he was also hoping that it was going to be Colossus, the High Templars. Again, not the most common on Zen. Not that it's bad, but not the most common. And then also ShowTime, not usually the one to go directly in a Storm. In fact, in general, Protoss not really prone to go directly in a Storm after the whole charge lot blink thing. Probably because it's just a little too on the nose, right? Like... then suddenly everything you have is now weak to EMPs. But it worked out a lot that game. Worked out really well. Thank you, Double D22, for the 5-month resub. Yamazaki. That's not the last whiskey that I had. I do like the Yamazaki, but Nick, the one that starts with an N. I forget what it's called. I'm gonna have to look up what's at my local alcohol store, because they have the whole setup of like you actually like stand in line and then go up to them and then they find it for you type thing. Suntory whiskey. Oh, I actually had the Toki. Yeah, I just finished that off. Japanese whiskey's gotten so expensive. I got into it just before it felt like the rest of the world got into it.
Resubscription received. Apparently you are doing
Hello,
something
90
right,
Scratch.
Captain.
Thank you for the 18-month resub. uThermal needs a second here. He's down 0-2. ShowTime looking quite strong. ShowTime did have some very good games against TY, so maybe this shouldn't be a surprise. Alternatively, uThermal had very good games against Zest. There we go. Both showing their prowess, but today ShowTime looking just a little bit better.
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you for appeasing the overmind.
Damn, you guys heard the hype train. Thank you, Duro Emil, 26 with Twitch Prime sub. In the top right, up 2, he is ShowTime. In the bottom left, as the Red Terran, we have uThermal. Pulling out a couple of tricky builds. That last one, one of the trickiest things you can do. It's very difficult to scout worker counts, right? Like,
Credits received.
and especially
Thank
since
you
they're
for
not very
monetary
popular
support.
either, these 3-base pushes that don't build SCVs. When you're talking about Zergs and like scouting for their worker count on their hatchery because the Reaper gets free scouting, like that's usually a bit easier and you're really paying attention to it. The whole like getting a Nexus and then not building probes or getting a 3rd CC and not building SCVs is usually really difficult to scout. So you don't get much advance notice that they're being a lot more dedicated. But it was just, I think ShowTime handling the first engagement as well as he did, plus actually getting his stalkers on a decent side of the engagements, I think were 2 pretty critical things there. And then, yeah, going for storms, obviously the most critical. Getting those storms down. Thank you very much.
Warning.
Diggle Duggle.
This program's detected
Oh, hot damn.
Server 04.
Hot trend. Thank you very much, Jiggle Duggle, for the $5 and Hard Revenge for the 3 gifted subs. Make sure to give some sub love if you got a sub. Thanks, guys. It's been a while since I had a hype train. Last one probably being that amazing birthday stream. That was something, though. I see a lot of love across the Twitch streams. I think Vibe at one point was up to like 3,000 subs or something insane. I don't watch him mostly because I feel like I don't watch streams when he's on. He's a night streamer. I guess I'm usually watching Maynard. And then who else? Roddy, of course, did well because he also had a birthday. There was one other person that got like 1,000 more subs than usual. I can't remember who it was, but anyways, really feeling the love, guys. Thank you very much. Scam trade. Skamaz. Alright. Stargate opener here from ShowTime, so he's the one that's mixing it up. I mean, he did already mix it up. Twilight Council, but Robo last game, and first game, sorry, and then last game he did actually go for the Blink Fast Third. Another thing that really helped him for that final engagement was not taking any damage to the Widow Mines and getting a slightly faster third. But now really changing it up. No Twilight Council, no Robo quite yet. Stargate first. Not very popular anymore in PvT, so often the last thing Terrans expect, but also the thing that does the least damage probably. Compared to what it used to be, especially, right? Like, I would never have said that in a million years if we were talking back in 2014, because Oracle's 2-shot workers and had a couple other differences to them, but no, nowadays, if you don't scout a Stargate, you very rarely, like, take severe damage from it. It's more that it changes the pacing of the game. In this case, having a Phoenix is actually going to be very helpful for taking out one of these Hellions. One of them very, very low already, but all you need is 3 of them, so he's got to take out the 2 that are low. Get those 2 that are low. Here comes the Phoenix. It had already been rallied across the map, it looks like, but it's actually not even necessary to help, as all the Hellions are taken out, but 5 probe losses, no army loss, and now uThermal knows about the Phoenix. he also has to anticipate taking damage from them potentially. With a Viking already out, he might not take a whole lot. A Cyclone is also already being prepared. The Viking Phoenix War, it used to be one way and now it's the other. I forget what happened. This is so funny, actually. But regardless, 2 Phoenix were available. That Viking was in danger. Good mass repair there from uThermal. Good timing on the Cyclone as well to help out against the Adepts, because only the Marines without a bunker would have had trouble. Nice hold on the counter, because he held all of his units as well. Thank you very much, Heart Revenge, for gifting us up to 11 Glowfly 22. Much appreciated, guys. Level 3 is not bad, not bad, not bad. With all of these buildings still producing, I'm kind of feeling the push here. You know, you don't even really necessarily need Vikings or a Cyclone. In this case, he did because he was about to be countered. But I'm talking about just generally, you wouldn't build many more beyond that unless you were looking to do a push. As you're supposed to be on to better things like barracks and stim, and that's actually pretty much it. So when you see more than 2, I would say more than 1 Viking, more than 2, now going into a 4th Viking, tank still being produced. I don't know, I would feel the push. 4 Vikings just simply aren't required to deal with Phoenix. There we go. There it is. Thank you very much. Some drunk Canadian for the 250 bits. I'm not drunk. Oh, I need to say this correctly. I'm to drunk. You're rude, drunk. Thank you. There's that push. We do have a handful of SCVs. The entire natural actually coming forward here as uThermal's like, F these macro games, man. Let's just end it right here, right now. ShowTime, however, has not lost many units in this game. Just 1 Adept, really. His Phoenix have been kept alive as well, and his 3rd Nexus can be canceled. Doesn't have to let it be killed. Well, it buys some time, and he builds up a stronger army back at home. I don't know. I actually think that ShowTime can be okay with dealing with this. Yes, he will have to cancel his Nexus. He will have to. I don't know about actually pushing in. He looks like he was like, oh, can I save this? But nah, don't do that. So, bit of a wasted Guardian Shield, and it is his only one, but I think it is ultimately wiser to have not pushed into that, like, at that timing. Now, if uThermal were to commit to this more, then I think ShowTime, you know, obviously has to take the engagement, but uThermal getting only a canceled Nexus is not worth the SCV pool. Not just the SCV pool, right? So, you know, both of them had their economies denied, but now the Phoenix can take out more economy, and this happens regardless if uThermal's back at home or not, because Phoenix can do this. Okay, they probably don't get 14 SCVs, 15 SCVs, they probably get more like 7, but that's the whole thing about Phoenix in higher numbers. They will almost guaranteed do damage. But he also wouldn't have Stimmer combat shields very quickly, and it doesn't even matter anymore. uThermal's like, yeah, okay, I guess I have to all in. That's way too much damage to take, and ShowTime is probably going to be more prepared. He can, again, cancel his 3rd Nexus. He has a force field for this little ramp right here. The Vikings are better off landing, maybe? I'm not even sure. I mean, 5 Vikings is actually pretty good damage, but I don't even know. Woofy, you could have just typed anything at all, and I would have been able to tell it's your first time. Typing nonsense in observer chat, it's a no-no, guys. You don't do that. The bunkers coming down do add a bit of a neat element to this push. It was pretty desperate when he had to, you know, he pulled back and then he was like, no, just kidding. But the bunkers definitely add something here. Reinforcements are taken out by the Phoenix, which do have to keep in mind how they use their energy. You don't want to kill all the Marines and then not be able to pick up any of these tanks. Cybernet Cores goes down, but you know what? ShowTime's already working on Zealot counts anyways. He's just waiting for Charge to finish. He doesn't need sentries. He doesn't need stalkers. He's going to have another Guardian Shield here. And he's going to have all these Phoenix to pick up the tanks. Regardless of the Vikings end up eventually killing the Phoenix, taking them out of the equation for even 5 seconds is good enough. And here we go. The SCV is going to go for the mass repair in the bunkers. The Marines do have stims. That helps a little, tiny little bit. But the Phoenix don't even come in here. ShowTime is so confident with this hold. He waits until the last seconds. And this is a complete disaster. ShowTime takes a quick and easy 3-0 against uThermal. Damn. Wasn't expecting.